So Elden Ring Nightreign has been out for over a month now, and I've honestly been having the time of my life with my friends, just playing in the new environment, killing bosses, just fucking shit up, you know? But I'm not gonna lie, it hasn't been perfect. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one to back down at the face of a challenge. I mean, dude, look at my Elden Ring playtime. Yeesh. In all seriousness though, Night definitely has some issues it still needs to iron out a month after its release. So I'm gonna get into that and discuss it. To start off, I do want to give FromSoft massive props for making a multiplayer game that doesn't give me a brain aneurysm every time I try to invite my friends. They have a really bad track record if you look at previous games. Please download Elden Ring Seamless Co-op. Jokes aside, I really don't have a lot to complain about on the combat side of things. It's fast, it's fluid, and it really gives you plenty of opportunities to experiment with the addition of the 8 classes. I'll start with the big boys. Wilder, Guardian, and Raider. They mostly rely on strength, so greatswords and hammers are their go-to weapons. You're mostly going to be taking aggro, going into the front lines, breaking enemy stances, and dealing a ton of damage. Moving on from our front line, I think I should discuss the classes that'll be taking up most of your back line. Iron Eye, Recluse, and Revenant are your ranged classes. They mostly play off of keeping enemies at a distance with bows, spells, and even summoning minions. They are glass cannons, however, just to counterbalance the keeping the distance part of them, so you can't be too reckless when you're dealing with bosses as them. To finish off explaining the classes in this game, I actually want to show off what I like to call the Aura classes, those being Duchess and Executor. They are the most unique classes in my opinion, solely due to their gimmicks. Duchess is able to stack on pass damage with the press of a button, and Executor has a blade on hand that he can use to parry his enemies, kind of similar to, say, Sekiro. Aside from the blatant aura farming you're gonna see on the battlefield from them, they're actually the dex classes of the game, and they play best with twin blades, katanas, and daggers, and can put on a ton of damage in huge intervals, given how fast they are compared to the rest of the classes in the game. Now, I personally enjoyed my time with each class, but if I were to say who my mains are in the current moment, they'd have to go to Iron Eye and Executor. Iron Eye mostly being because he's very strong right now, and Executor, like I said, literally aura farms in the middle of your match, so that is a huge plus. Moving on from the core gameplay, I do want to address the elephant in the room that everyone is still complaining about: the lack of crossplay. I personally am of the belief that any new multiplayer game in 2025 should have crossplay, whether on launch or added post-launch through a patch. The fact that FromSoft still hasn't adapted to this kind of goes to show how out of their element they are in the multiplayer game space. On top of this glaring issue, servers and matchmaking are very hit or miss depending on the time of day. Sometimes I'm able to find a team within like 10 seconds, and other times I'm waiting almost a half hour. Another issue I've found quite recently, along with a couple of friends, is sometimes the server will just crash on you for no reason, and it doesn't give you any idea of why. I've found the only fix at the moment for me is to basically reset my game and pray that it fixes itself. Normally, I'd blame it on the servers being overloaded, but it's been a month now, and there still hasn't been an official statement from the devs over what the issue could be, or if there's a fix coming anytime soon. But Kona, I hear you saying, just solo queue at that point. There's no issue if you're not matchmaking. As much as I'd like to agree with you on that, solo queue is another thing I would like to discuss in depth. So Elden Ring Nightreign is a multiplayer game at its core, and the balancing and scaling reflects that, for the most part. But there are definitely times where the balance does feel sloppy. Don't get me wrong, the scaling for most enemies is really good in 3-player co-op, but solo expeditions are a completely different beast. Let me ask you something. Given the higher player count and damage potential of a 3-man team, getting 2-shot by a boss in return sounds balanced, right? Now give me a logical reason as to why the same thing can happen in solo queue even at max level. The answer is that there really isn't any logical reasoning for it, and the game should be a bit more forgiving for solo queue players. Giving people an extra life each day of an expedition isn't gonna fix the blatant balancing issue solo expeditioners have. Normally, I'd chalk it up to it just being a skill issue on my part, but it's really not. I have soloed every Night Lord in the game at least once with multiple classes, so I know this isn't on me. I could understand maybe only being able to take 3 or 4 attacks from a boss, even from glass cannon characters, but 1 to 2 hits is just too punishing. Solo queue is by far the hardest way to play the game right now due to how much more punishing it is. Moving on, I'm gonna take a breather and go back to glazing the game just a little bit more. Playing Nightreign is a great way to not only pay your respect to every other previous entry, but it also reaps the rewards of that nostalgia by bringing back bosses from all the past games. They can potentially pose as bosses at the end of every night, and definitely keep every expedition feeling fresh and less repetitive. My personal favorites have to go to Gaping Dragon from Dark Souls 1, Smelter Demon from Dark Souls 2, and both Dancer of the Boreal Valley and the Nameless King from Dark Souls 3. I will say though, there is only one flaw I can think of regarding their inclusions, and that is, if you have never played any of the past FromSoft Souls games before Nightreign, you might struggle more with these bosses than a veteran would. I can attest to this in particular because I've played every FromSoft Souls game, including Sekiro, but that's beside the point. And I specifically remember playing one night with the boys about, gotta be 2 weeks ago, and I had to call out these bosses' movesets and had to let them all know each boss's gimmick and their weaknesses. It did make me feel kinda cool helping them learn, but I felt kinda bad, and it made it come off as if the game expects you to have this outside knowledge to succeed. But that's just my stance on the matter. Overall though, I do love their inclusions, and I think it's a great way to hook newer players into going back and revisiting the older titles. Closing this video out, there's not really anything else I feel the need to talk about. The game has issues and definitely isn't perfect, but I still believe it's worth trying out, and I still feel like I got my money's worth, you know? I would highly recommend picking it up if you have friends who are willing to hop on with you, but you might want to hold off on trying to do solo expeditions like I did. Who knows though, more patches are coming, so there's always that chance that they will fix the issues I covered in this video, and if that happens, maybe I'll make an update video. For now though, be sure to like and subscribe to keep up on my content. I normally don't make video essays like this. I'm usually more of a gameplay slash meme oriented content creator, but for stuff I'm very passionate about, I will definitely do more like this in the future. So be sure to also leave some comments regarding your thoughts on the game, and feel free to request stuff you'd like me to cover. That's really all I have to say, so I'll see you guys around. Bye bye!